As the season has gone on and keys have climbed higher and higher, Havoc Demon Hunter's damage potential has shown that it is as strong as we thought it was. But one big issue has reared its ugly head, and that has kind of held back Havoc from doing as well in the top keys, also Vengeance, as we hoped it would have, and that is going to be their survivability. Now, you may be listening to this and think that, hey, Havoc's actually really tanky, but we're not. We actually see ourselves dying a lot in high keys. So in this video, I'm going to go over how to live as a Havoc Demon Hunter and where some of these issues with our survivability comes from. So the first thing to do to dive in on living and how to live as Havoc is just talk about what they have access to baseline. The baseline, the main thing is Blur. Blur is a 1 minute CD that gives you a 20% damage reduction for 10 seconds and also a 50% chance to dodge, which can come up like on the third boss of Black Rook Hold. You can dodge his charge, which is, you know, RNG, but it's funny when it happens. This is Havoc's really only defensive outside of something like Netherwalk, which we'll get to. This is their bread and butter. If there's a big hit coming up, you push this and you live. Other things in our baseline, they have a passive 10% magic damage reduction known as Demonic Wards, and then also they have Shattered Souls, which is a series of things that causes you to spawn soul shards whenever you kill an enemy or use your Chaos Strike, and those things heal you. So that's kind of it baseline. Now their talent tree does open up a bunch more options as well. In the class tree, you have Soul Rending, which just gives you 10% leech and an extra 10% when you're in meta. So 20% leech in meta, 10% normally. They give you access to Illidari Knowledge, which is an additional 5% magic reduction, so 15%, which is pretty solid. And then finally a Will of the Illidari, which is a 5% maximum health gain. Now there is also something called Infernal Armor, which is Immolation Aura, increases your armor by 20%. Realistically speaking, Havoc does not have a ton of armor. This is pretty low uptime because you don't really want to use it, use Immolation Aura for that kind of thing. Now, when it's good, but there's a lot of things that aren't really physical hits. Again, very few physical hits in dungeons. But when they're going on, Infernal Armor is very useful for those. One more thing in the Havoc tree that I just forgot is Demon Muzzle, which is an 8% magic damage reduction whenever enemies are affected by sigils. Realistically speaking, this isn't taken that often, but it's there if you really need to live through magic damage, and that 8% will just kind of edge you over it. Now moving over to the spec tree, Havoc has a few more options as well. We have Demon Hide, which is just a 5% physical damage reduction tacked on to 3% magical damage done. We have Scars of Suffering, which is a 4% versatility gain, which is roughly 2% damage reduction. And then finally, we have the two actives, so to speak. We have Netherwalk, which is a 3-minute immunity. Now I say immunity because it's only becoming immune to damage. You still get the application of things, and you still also don't cleanse yourself of things. So it's not like Bubble or Ice Block where whenever you use it, you cleanse yourself of debuffs, so you're immune to debuff application. Netherwalk is purely a damage reduction. So think of it as 100% damage reduction, not an immunity. You also can't attack during it, but you get some move speed, which is fun. And finally, the last one is going to be Deflecting Dance, which is whenever you are in the animation of Blade Dance. So while you are Blade Dancing, you have a 15% max HP absorb shield, which is pretty good. It adds up to a fairly sizable amount. My character right now has 900,000 HP, more or less. So with that shield, you're up over 1 million, which is pretty good and helps to live a lot of one-shots. So with all these tools, Havoc is really good at passive rot damage. The things that are, many hits, magical hits that happen over time or happen multiple hits in once. Havoc's pretty good at that as long as they're not too big. You're good at leeching things up. If there's a dot ticking you down, you can leech up very well. You have Fell Devastation as well. I didn't mention that, but that heals you. And the Hunt also heals you. So you have a lot of self-healing tools and a lot of passive magic damage reduction, which in lower keys or in easier content can lead to Havoc living a lot, right? They're just being live lords. However, the issue comes down to your only active defensives being Blur, which is a 1 minute 20%, which is not bad. That's pretty good. You have the Death Sweep Shield, which is 15% every like 7 seconds or so, but that's like a 15% max HP shield, and that requires a lot of timing. Then you have Netherwalk, which is a 3 minute, like 10 second, I believe it is, might be 6, no, a 6 second immunity. So Havoc's main issue comes in the form of repeated one-shots. which is kind of a problem when you look at Mythic Plus. So this current season of Mythic Plus, there isn't really a damage component, right? Like damage just kind of is a thing that all the classes can bring. Basically every class can do a crazy amount of damage. What gets you brought to a key is how well you can live hits. And Havoc ends up having a lot of problems living those hits. Now, one of the best ways to do this is to combine your things together, basically saving your Blade Dance for any big hit so that you can combine Blur and Deflecting Dance is going to be a lot of how you live those bigger hits. There are certain things you can just live passively on lower key levels, which is great. But realistically, you only have two options. You have Nether Walk and you have Blur plus Deflecting Dance. And if things are happening more often than those things, you are going to be screwed. There's just nothing you can do about it. So combining those things is the first step. But whenever those things don't work, what do? Well, you start to turn and look to things available outside of your spec. And there are a lot of external tools and external things in the game that allow Havoc to live a little bit more than would otherwise be necessary. So let's jump over and take a look at those and break those options down. So what are the external tools available to Havoc? Well, we're going to break them down into two categories, consumables and trinkets. There are some available in both that can help you live while either sacrificing a ton of damage or a little bit of damage. So we're going to start off with the consumables first. Now the first one is going to be the Phial of Tepid Versatility. Normally Havoc in keys uses Phial of Corrupting Rage, which gives you a ton of crit and is a lot of damage, but also ends up having a bit of a dot component to it, which definitely can get you killed in certain scenarios. Now the Phial of Tepid Versatility gives you 745 verse, which, you know, isn't a ton. It's roughly 3.6 to 4% verse when you're under 30% versatility, which Havoc, generally speaking, does end up stacking Critical Strike and Mastery with a little bit of verse, so you're often down pretty low there. Now this actually ends up being pretty good in those higher keys, better than the crit one, because it does give you damage. It's roughly 4% damage, while giving you that 2% damage reduction, which can be valuable. And of course, you could also just stack more verse on your gear or roll more avoidance if you get lucky, if you want to live. Dropping Mastery for verse is a damage loss, but you do gain survivability, of course. If you want to go a bit more survivable and not worry about the stat stuff, you can take a Phial of Icy Preservation. This is a interesting little flask that gives you a 6% DR while you're above 50% HP, but a 6% damage taken increase while you're below 50% HP. This is really good at stopping those one-shots that Havoc is bad against, or at least helping against it, giving you pretty near constant 6% damage reduction. But if you're ever low and another hit comes to get you, like maybe on the third boss of Everbloom with the fire bolts hitting multiple times, you definitely can get gimped by this. Again, it's good for surviving, but it can be a little bit tricky, and also of course brings basically no damage with it. In terms of trinkets, there are a few options. Now, there's some again that are more so damage focused, and some again that are just purely survivability. On the damage focus side, we have the Ember of Nullification, which is essentially just a versatility stat stick. It gives you verse and it gives you agility, and that's mostly it. There's a little bit of a blurb about magic damage and silencing and whatever, but realistically speaking, this won't ever really proc in a key. Maybe once or twice it'll be useful over the course of a key, and you don't really grab it for that. You grab it for giving that damage option with the agility and the verse, while also giving you roughly a 2% damage reduction because of the versatility. If you're looking for something a little more survivable, so to speak, you could grab a Rage Heart from Farak. This is a tank trinket that drops from the final boss, obviously on Mythic if you can, and it gives you a shield that you can use every minute and a half. Now this shield is not as big as you'd think, because it deals damage to you and enemies around you while you have it up. So it's not as big as the tooltip would state, but it is very, very valuable at surviving one-shots, and you'll see that most Havocs in high keys use this to survive those often one-shots. It also has just a passive damage portion where you radiate damage to yourself and enemies around you. It can add up, it can do some pretty alright damage over the course of a key. This is probably the best options for survivability that also brings some damage with it. Finally, we just have the Cheat Death Trinket from the first half of Dawn of the Infinite. Now, this is full-on survival. You get a little bit of a haste bonus whenever you die and come back with it, but realistically speaking, you're using this because there are often times where you'll die and don't really have other options to live those, right? You don't have a rage heart, so this is kind of your only option. It's not a great trinket, especially for Havoc. It's fine, it can help you live things if you need, but you know, the option is there. So those are all your options as Havoc, but what does that actually mean at living in keys? Well, we can see here, this is a website called Not Even Close. It's a very useful website. I'll link in the description. Shout out to the person who made it, where you can kind of look and see about what will kill you and what won't. So these here are all the different, you know, kind of inputs we can do. You can choose your class, you can put in your stamina, verse, and avoidance and all that. This is just random numbers for the most part. They're like sort of similar to how my gear used to be, but you can take a look at tyrannical, fortified, and just what you can live and what you can't live. Because realistically speaking, as a Havoc, the only way to live is by combining things. You can see here with Blur and with the Flucking Dance, you can live a lot of different things. Obviously, Nether Walk will let you live everything. But the problem again comes in when these happen often. If you get Earthshaking Stomp into Hateful Charge into another Earthshaking Stomp, you don't have Blur to live it that often, so you're just kind of gonna fall over. But this is a very useful tool. It allows you to see for what key level, what things will let you live, which different potions you'll need, which different group actives you will have, which passives you have depending on your group run, what buffs you can use to live, different externals you can call for your healer group. So this is a great resource and is probably the best way to figure out how to live as a Havoc Demon Hunter in these high keys. But again, Havoc is pretty tanky if you know what you're doing. We obviously do have that weakness to constant one-shots that is keeping us out of the highest keys, as well as the presence of Vengeance, of course. And this is just a great way to use those tools that we have and figure out how to best put them into practice so that you can end up living just in general. Now, I guess I didn't mention Darkness. That's because it's an RNG thing. You might live, you might not. But Havoc's tools will allow you to live most things in a dungeon at least once if you're using them properly. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Just a little video today going over, you know, how to live in keys and just what options Havocs have. Hope this helped you out if you're pushing those higher keys or looking to get into higher keys and find yourself dying a little bit. You know, I know that there's a lot of stuff out there, so hopefully this helped to condense it into one place. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next week with another one. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Of course, we're getting close to 10,000 subs, which is insane. So thank you all so much. See you guys next time. Peace. A big thank you to all of my channel members. Thank you Sky Elk, Andrew Keenel, 100,001 Zans, Guillermo Lamas, Brad Wisniak, It's Bulk, and Magic Man 133. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. If you want to support the channel and get a few perks along the way, check the link in the description to become a channel member, or go follow me on Twitch and sub there. Again, thank you all so much. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time.